Here we go, everyone. This is Formula One. Incredible! What a move! Chaos. And he's done it!
It's a moment I will never ever forget.
George Russell kicks off this new era of Formula One with the win, and his teammate Kimi Antonelli makes it a Mercedes 1-2 for the first time since 2019. It wasn't all their own way though. Ferrari were asking the questions. They flew off the line at the start. Charles Leclerc completes the podium. It was a brilliant race to start the season. We have got a lot to unpack. And we're going to do it in the paddock in the company of this lot. Jolyon Palmer, George afterwards on the team radio said, oh yeah, lovely, I like this car. He's got a lot to be happy about, doesn't he?
Yeah, well, he's championship leader now. He's had such a clean weekend, really put it all together. He was so wary of the Ferraris at the start, we all were, and that was the only thing he had to deal with really, was the rockets at the start. And then the race fell on his plate really, and he didn't look back, didn't think he would. Once he had the car in clean air, he's got a great chance this year, hasn't he?
Juan Pablo Montoya, what was your reaction to that race?
The start was amazing, a lot more overtaken than anybody expected. The racing was mixed, it was really good. Surprised but not surprised at Ferrari with the strategy, to be honest. It's like, I don't know, I was kind of shocked. You should have at least divided the cars. Mercedes was very clear on what they were doing, and you know, heads off again to Mercedes. They executed well, and Lewis did pretty good. I was impressed.
Well, you talk about strategy. We've got to head over to Ruth Buscombe then, don't we?
Sorry,
really?
taking your job.
Grand Prix winning strategist over there, Ruth. What did you make of the strategy? Did the strategy win it for Mercedes?
No. I think what Charles said in the kind of cool down there, when he said, you know, I think the Mercedes pace ultimately got it to them. I think they lost around 10 seconds by going for that strategy. That's the difference between taking the stop in racing conditions, virtual versus virtual safety car. I think the Mercedes had the edge today. Could they have made it a lot harder for them? Yes, I think so. I came over to Jolyon after the end of the race, and I was like, do you know why they didn't split the cars? Because sometimes you might miss things. But yeah, it's hard out there, isn't it? And you can see lots of different teams going for it. That first virtual safety car was right on the window, and it's the hardest call to make when you're leading. And they didn't get the opportunity to box at the second virtual safety car, which was the easier call to take it.
But why didn't they split the cars? It's a really hard call to make for the race leader that early, I get it. And Mercedes were marginal for the one stop thereafter, so Ferrari obviously thought, it's a bit early, let's wait for the safer one, but split the cars. Lewis said it straight away. Guys, why have we both stayed out? And both Mercedes saw it and pitted. It reminded me a little bit of Qatar last year, when McLaren were left out, hoping for another safety car that never came.
For me, that's what some of the gloriousness of a first race, which is that the numbers they're looking at, they're making decisions based on what they think the tyres are going to do and what they think the overtaking difficulty is being. And I think they got those two slightly wrong. I think they thought that the medium was going to be able to go really deep into the race, much lower deck potentially, so that you could actually keep both cars out.
It did go quite far though.
But 40 laps, and then, you know, you could keep going, and you could take that 10 seconds back, and the overtaking might have been harder for them in their model.
Do you know what, guys? Let's get into it. Jolyon, we've got to get to the race highlights. Come on.
We'll roll the highlights.
It was a sixth career win for George Russell. This is how we did it.
Our journey around the world to crown a champion is about to begin.
Oscar Piastri, the home favourite, has hit the wall on the reconnaissance lap to the grid. He said he's okay, but extraordinarily, we've already lost to McLaren from this race.
The new season is underway. They crawl off the line, and Charles Leclerc's to the inside. He's done it. What a start for the Ferraris. Charles Leclerc goes through. He climbs 3 positions and takes the lead from 4th on the grid. Out front, George Russell sweeps by, and the Mercedes man reclaims the lead. And Charles Leclerc is going to try and go all the way around the outside to retake the lead.
It is this wonderful game of cat and mouse.
Ferrari back to P1. Problem for Isaac Hadjar, out of the Grand Prix on lap 11. George Russell in, Kimi Antonelli in, they took the opportunity. Can he go around the outside? Great defense on the restart for Arvid Lindblad, but it's about to end. Sweeping by, taking the position, Max Verstappen back up to P6. Charles Leclerc has been called to the pit lane.
Well, that surprises me. That surprises me a lot.
George Russell looking to the inside and not being given away by until now. George Russell back into the lead.
And now Hamilton pits.
And the Mercedes man applauded across the line. George Russell wins the Australian Grand Prix. So Mercedes 1-2 in a season opener.
Woo! Very nice. I like this car. I like this engine.
Well, Charles Leclerc and George Russell traded that lead 7 times in the opening 9 laps in that epic start. We're going to get into everything. We are going to talk about Ferrari's strategy because this lot really want to get into that. But we've got Ollie Behrman with us from Haas. Ollie, P7, happy?
Yes, happy. It was a great race. The start was very challenging and I was back to 23rd or 24th. But then I managed to come back and actually in those early laps I managed to get all the way back up to 12th. Using the boost button, I felt like I was a bit in a video game. Then after that, you know, everything settled down and everyone is kind of doing their own rhythm. The VSC came out and we decided to stay out because I was the second car and have actually a bit of clean air after that. Luckily, to be honest, I was the second VSC and we managed to benefit from that. But we'd overcut basically all of the other cars who had boxed on the first one. And then it was basically clean run to the line. I just had to fight with Arvid, who did an excellent job defending. And he had, I think, extra battery power hidden somewhere in his car, but it was very fun nonetheless.
I want to talk to you about that battle with Arvid Lindblad. We can show it to you now, actually, on the monitor. What was going through your mind here? What do you make of this?
Don't crash, basically. You know, you have no grip in the straights anymore because of this straight line mode, so you can't really do any erratic moves. You have to be... And then, oh, you missed it, but then obviously I used all of my battery in turn 1, so then he overtook me in turn 3 like I was standing still. and then into turn 6, you know, I'm like lifting off, just praying that I can recharge the battery for turn 9. We were side by side again into turn 9, so I can see why. I didn't realize that the leaders changed so many times, but I can see why that happened, to be honest.
Yeah, it was a lot of energy deployment, swapping around a little bit like you guys were having. But what I liked was you obviously had the battery power on the straight, but then you had to really work for it to stay there when you were low on the energy. How is the racing generally? You said you were quite a long time behind Arvid, trying to find a way past.
Yeah, you know, on one side, on this track, the overtaking delta is like 8 or 9 tenths. Last year, DRS was 6 tenths. This year, the overtake mode is worth 1 tenth. So it's kind of 3 times more difficult to overtake on a track like this where you don't have much energy reserve. So, you know, I feel like with the pace delta I had, which especially at the start was quite decent, I probably would have overtaken him a bit more easily last year. So basically with these new regs, you kind of get one shot at it, and if you don't pull it off, you spend another 3 laps recharging the battery. So overall, I was happy to get through. But then you're looking in your mirrors for like 2 laps, hoping that you can hold on.
Yeah, so that's why you do the move, you use your energy, and then you're like, right, how wide can I make this car for a while?
But it looked really exciting. I know it's a little different, and I think people need, especially the drivers, need to learn to maximize it. Do you think you got to the point you go, okay, I know what I need to do, or you end up the race going, man, I should have done this, or we need to review everything, how we're doing things?
Yeah, you know, I think this track is a tough one because there's just no braking zones, you know, so there's no places to recharge the battery. Bahrain felt almost similar to last year at times when I was driving the car, and the boost button is actually working because you always have a bit of margin in the battery pack. This track, on the other hand, from the exit of turn 6 until turn 11, you have no battery. You know, you're discharging fully the battery pack. So pretty much it's you know, you don't have much flexibility, which is annoying. But I think, like I said, this is the worst case scenario, and that means as a team we learned the most because it's the biggest stress test, you know. So when we get to China, I think it's going to be a bit more interesting.
You won your race. P7, the next car ahead of you is Max. So That's as
Yeah,
much as
pretty
you can
much.
do.
That's the best we could have done, in my opinion, today. And obviously, we benefited from some retirements of the cars in front, but that's standard on the first race of a new era.
Ollie, I'm being told that we've got to let you go, so off you
Okay,
go.
bye.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much. Celebrate tonight. Listen to
you.
Taylor Swift or something.
See you.
I've heard that's his favourite singer, Taylor Swift. There we go.
Many peoples.
Many
So we're
people.
going back to?
Juan Pablo, yeah. So when we were watching the highlights, Juan Pablo Montoya said to us, we've got to hold Ferrari to account. So go on, here's the floor, off you go.
No, honestly, we always complained last year that Ferrari was never aggressive enough and they always missed a strategy. And in my opinion, they did again. I think maybe they didn't have a car to win, but they brought the fight to Mercedes. They got the start. They were holding position. I think Charles did an amazing job coming back to, to George over and over again, and he was looking really good. And then the safety car comes out, the virtual one, and it's like, everybody but them. It's like, not again. It's like, why? It's like, at some point there's got to be somebody going, are we really the odd man out? It's like, we can't have 10 smart teams. You have 10 smart teams and one missing it, and in their mind thinking everybody's getting it wrong.
I thought there was a big paradox between how hard Charles was working to take the fight to Mercedes, and then, he knows he has to throw caution to the wind. So the race start, he's launching in. It was superb. It wasn't just on the getaway. He still had to do it on the brakes. Then he was so aggressive. We heard George on the radio saying that's not really what we're supposed to do, according to their chats before.
But George, you always hear that from George.
And the stewards didn't care, did they?
Exactly.
So, he's taking the fight so hard. But then I felt like Ferrari they gave it a little bit the white flag, especially when they did pit in the end. It felt like it was we've tried, we've got nothing more to offer. When they could have stayed out and just hoped for a little bit more, they'd sort of accepted defeat. Ruth, can we play out a scenario? What happens if Charles Leclerc pits at that first stop?
You see, I think what actually would have happened if they would have ended up pretty much in similar positions. But what I think they did was they underestimated how fast they were, because you didn't really get a reference. You never get a reference when you're playing that cat and mouse game. I think potentially they thought their only chance of beating the Mercedes was to stay out and take the track position, because I think they thought maybe this is our only chance to be able to have it. But, obviously in hindsight, it was the wrong decision. I'm sure they're going to review that.
Yeah, but look
and
at
make
Lewis.
it.
Look at Lewis. Lewis went on the radio and said, why we didn't even split the cars?
I agree, mate.
He's been around long enough, and we all looked at each other and going, not again.
So let's say Charles pits from the lead.
Yes.
Does George pit from second?
Absolutely.
Probably not. I think he probably stays out at
Do
that
you
point to
think
get the
so?
clear air.
I think they would have come in.
Well, then perfect for Ferrari. Then they have track position. They both pitted,
Yeah.
and they can win the race if Charles gets his elbows out for as
If he
long as
can
possible.
keep up what he was doing, he would. And
give him
worst
the best
case
shot.
scenario, yeah. And if they don't win, they're right there. Like, it's like they went to Mercedes and said, you know what, have at it, we'll just take second, I'll be happy with second.
And if George doesn't pit because the Mercedes want the free air, they think they've got the car pace, then they wouldn't have been able to get the VSC, like Ferrari didn't get the second one, and they'd have then had the full 19-second pit stop and had to charge through. So they would have had to work a lot harder for it. Either they both pit, or George doesn't, and he has to work harder than he did.
Well, let's find out what a 7-time world champion thinks about that race. Here is Lewis Hamilton.
Hey Lewis, I know you're not on the podium, but it feels like you're back in the game, right? So it looked like you had a lot of fun out there. Just talk me through how you're feeling.
Yeah, I feel great. I feel like I could have kept going. I wish the race was longer. I think, another 5 laps or so, I would have definitely, I think I would have got third. So there's lots and lots of positives to take from today, and the car was feeling great, and it was actually a really fun race.
As a team, it feels like, I know you haven't quite got the pace mark, but you're in the mix, right? So it feels like if you do the right things, hopefully over the next couple of races, you might be able to get in the fight, do you think?
Yeah, I think we've got some work to do to try and catch up with we got to work on improving our power, clearly, because they're just got more power than everyone, it seems, or more battery power. I'm not really sure what it is. So, but I really think we maximised our result and our performance, and I felt great in the car. So I'm really, really excited for the next races.
Great work. See you next one.
Well, that was very positive from Lewis Hamilton, wasn't it? He wanted the race to be longer. He's very excited for the races coming up, Shanghai. Jolyon, in commentary, you said that it's actually quite positive for Ferrari, because if they go to other races where overtaking isn't as easy, they can capitalise off that fast start. So Ferrari fans, really, I mean, this is okay.
Yeah, and it may well be, for all our strategy chat, that third and fourth was the best they could do because of the pace anyway around this circuit. But there's two things. Firstly, as Ollie's already said, this is the circuit where you have to recharge the most aggressively, and that favours Mercedes. A track like Bahrain, where we were testing, it was way more normal, the driving. There was a little bit of clipping, and it suited Ferrari more. Yesterday, Mercedes had a massive advantage in the straights. So that will help Ferrari. And also overtaking, Ollie's saying this circuit is actually one of the easier. It's still difficult. So if Ferrari can keep getting off the line very well, and it's hard to overtake, and there's not the safety car throwing up strategy conundrums, then they're going to win races quickly this year.
I feel like you agree with that, Ruth, do you?
Do you know what? I don't. It's never
That's
right.
surprising.
If I'm being, do you know what? China, I think, is an easy overtake track. I still think the starts are going to make a big thing, and I think with the power sensitivity. But the good thing is that car, the race trim, the race pace was much closer than we saw yesterday in qualifying, which I think we expected it to be closer. Around 3/10. Now, Mercedes may still have more performance to come in forward, but I think you can see he's a happy Lewis, isn't he?
But you look at the pace against Charles. Of course he's going to be happy. He came out of the pits, 7 seconds behind and finished within a second of him. When have we seen Lewis last year do that? It was never. It was, Charles had the upper hand all year long, and I think Lewis is comfortable in the car, and he's starting to push the car, and he's starting to get the results.
He's been brilliant this weekend.
Yes.
The results actually don't justify how well he's driven. I would say he was very quick in Melbourne, or comparatively with Charles last year, and he's great in China. Remember that sprint from last season. So hopefully he'll take that confidence, and hey, I think we could see Lewis right in the fight next week.
Are we saying Lewis Hamilton's back?
He never left, Betty.
I think Ferrari are back. This is much better for
especially
both of them.
for Lewis.
Ferrari are back. Okay, interesting. So Ferrari are back. Mercedes are very happy. George Russell has kicked off this new era of Formula One with the win, and his teammate Kimi Antonelli makes it a 1-2.
Back with me at the studio, where we're going to look at the brave new world of starts in 2026. A couple of different strategies. Let's pick some protagonists. Arvid Lindblad is going to have a great start to his first Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton is going to do something really interesting. Charles Leclerc is going to take the lead in his Ferrari. So let's have a look. Firstly at those two Ferraris launching off the line, look. And then Lewis Hamilton finds a load of extra deployment. But check out where Lindblad is here. His teammates not got off the line very well. Finds himself in a little gap. And look at the distance between him and Lewis Hamilton, considering they were only a row apart on the grid. Remember that distance as he takes it on the brakes down towards turn 1. Hamilton's going to get shoveled wide, but now check out Lindblad. He saved a load of energy on the way down to turn 1, and this is the kind of thing we've been talking about. Lindblad is now going to deploy all that energy down to turn 3. Look at him take off like a shot in his RB, but there's yet another sting in the tail. Lewis Hamilton has recovered from deploying down to turn 1 and finds a little bit of extra to defend himself against Lando Norris down the inside of T3. It's punch and counterpunch even over that kind of period of time in those first couple of corners. Tough to get these cars off the line, even tougher to manage the energy when you get there within the full field of drivers who all want P1.
Well, the paddock is busy and bustling. There's a lot of people hanging around here in Melbourne. George Russell then has won the first race of the 2026 season. Juan Pablo, what do you think about Mercedes' starts? Are they going to be slightly worried about, their slower starts in comparison to Ferrari?
Yes, because they're not as easy to get right. It is incredible because they made studies about it. They have done a lot of preparation, and this is what they got. So now they need to start looking at how can we get more power. You start putting more power, you start spinning the tires. Why is the Ferrari can get the extra traction? Back in the day, my time was the Renault. Fernando Alonso used to do those blinding starts, and there was nothing you can do. And sometimes it's just the nature of the car, and that's, and there's a chance they're going to suffer with this whole year. They're going to get better, but are they going to get as good as Ferrari? I highly doubt it.
Yeah, for once I agree with you, Juan. I think yes, I think it's a development item. Fred mentioned it like to us in the paddock, and then even into the media that he was kind of saying the start's going to be pretty tricky with these new power units. We don't have that MGUH that helps spin up the turbo that we had helping last year. Now the Ferrari, they put a lot of effort into that, and I think they deserve that advantage. Long may it live. It made it super great for us watching it.
Let's move on then and talk about Red Bull, because it was sort of mixed fortunes for them. Max Verstappen went from 20th, Jolyon, all the way up the grid to 6th, had that nice little battle with Lando Norris going on. He did well. Do you think he could have got more out of that car, or did that look like that was it?
In terms of pace, I mean, I think he was a little bit quicker than Lando, but I've heard that he was struggling with any extra energy deployment. So the boost button that Ollie described as the key to the overtakes, I don't know if Max had that available to him. So that's why he wasn't having any sort of closing speed. Mentioned it on commentary, the slipstream is not that effective. So you need to have extra energy to deploy. If you don't have that, you're really not going to overtake. So I think that cost him one position. And overall, decent race, managed to carve his way through earlier on. But they're not on the pace of the top two teams.
Yeah, I think the gremlins that caught them out yesterday. I think there was a couple more gremlins that caught them out again today. It looked like twice during that race. There was 2 separate instances where he complained that he didn't have that boost button that obviously gives you that kind of extra oomph that's very important to be able to overtake. One thing I do disagree with you on, though, is the pace, because actually I think that car was the second fastest car, and if he'd started P3, I think he would have been, a thorn in the side. I reckon he would have been P3 or P4.
But he would have beat Ferrari because Ferrari wouldn't stop and they would.
Oh, no.
Realistically.
Okay. Well, let's
Sorry,
hear
but
what
it's the
Max
truth.
Verstappen thought about that then. Here he is talking to Lawrence Barretto.
Hey Max, well, heck of a fight back from where you were starting today. Just talk me through how pleased you were with what you could at least try to salvage from today's race.
Yeah, I mean, it was okay. Of course, we also have quite a bit more pace in the midfield, so I just needed to clear that clean, which we did. I learned a lot, of course, also with the battles and how to use the battery and stuff. So that was, I think, quite a positive thing. And then at one point, I was quite by myself, just settling in. And I think, the 2 hard compounds today didn't really work for us. So a lot of degradation, a lot of graining, and that made me then, of course, do a 2-stop.
Just on the gap to the top, Mercedes and Ferrari, just quite a big one. What do you kind of reflect on that? How big is that? How tough is that?
Yeah, I just grained way too quickly. That's why we had to then pit again for new tires.
But in terms of the gap to Mercedes and Ferrari, it's still there, isn't it? Are you concerned about how big it is at the minute, or do you think it's more circuit-specific?
Concerned. I mean, I can be concerned about it, but it's not going to change anything, right? So I'm not concerned about it. We just work as a team to try and close that gap, and step by step, of course, hopefully we can be more competitive.
Right, thanks, Max. Cheers.
Okay, so Max Verstappen saying he's not concerned about that gap between them and Mercedes. Do you think he should be, Juan?
I mean, it's going to take a bit of time. The big question is from now on, the next 5 weeks, is who brings development. And we're going to start to see which development works and which one doesn't, because that is going to mix a lot of the grid. Because, as Ruth probably going to agree with me, is not every upgrade you bring into the track means that the car is going to go quicker.
Well, one team that's historically quite good at upgrades and developments throughout the season is McLaren. Jolyon, do you think Lando Norris, where do you think he's going to be in terms of how satisfied he's going to be with the performance today?
Really dissatisfied. He's not had an easy weekend. Didn't have a huge amount of pace, didn't have a huge reason for it. It was in free air for most of it and just couldn't match the guys ahead. Same power unit for McLaren as is in the back of the Mercedes. So McLaren have got a lot of headroom with getting them more out of that Mercedes power unit. And he's the reigning champion. So, to come back and not be able to fight at the moment is obviously going to be disappointing, as it is for Max. And obviously we haven't really spoken about Oscar.
We're going to get onto Oscar. That's what we need to
am
move
I
on
getting ahead
to,
of myself
Jolyon.
again?
You are getting a little bit. Just while you're talking about the power units, this is something that I've been wondering, and I think a lot of people have been asking this question. If the likes of McLaren, Alpine, Williams have the same power unit as Mercedes, why are they so much farther behind?
Well, I mean, we sort of were asking ourselves yesterday, weren't we, really? Mercedes make the power unit. They supply McLaren, Alpine and Williams. they are privy to more information earlier. It's all a game of recharge and deployment and how you manage to use the energy from the battery. The combustion engine is the combustion engine. The battery is the magic at the moment in terms of the performance.
Yeah, I think it's how they recharge it. I think the big part is the software, and you know what I mean, everybody gets given kind of the same software, but everybody else gets a blank page, where Mercedes gets all the development, and each team needs to come up with their own way of how they're going to recoup. I think after this race, I think a lot of the Mercedes teams are going to look back at it and go, this is what we need to do. And one of the reasons I think Max struggled today as well to pass is because Lando had the Mercedes power unit.
I was speaking to Alex Albon before, and he's got the Mercedes power unit, and they're no better off for it. Williams, Alpine, McLaren. I do think they've probably got more room to develop. I think Mercedes have got more on top of it earlier, so there's more opportunities for their rivals to catch up. But Alex was saying, basically, we think we're doing what we know as the most, but then you see Mercedes doing something completely different, and it works for them. So there's some tricks in there that Mercedes have got that others don't.
So some learnings maybe to be made. Let's move on to Oscar Piastri then. Absolute heartbreak. Crashed out before the race even started. Ruth, what was your reaction to that?
Absolutely gutting. It looked like, he kind of drops that wheel and then it's a bit of a, torque spike, cold tyres. I mean, first off, poor Oscar. He's come off the back of 2 miserable races here. Miserable for the fans, and, just shows how easy it is to make a mistake with this new generation of cars. We had Max yesterday, Oscar today. That's 2 big names, it's 2 great drivers, kind of getting caught out with, what would have been a small issue in last year.
He takes a gear just as he's going to lose that rear, and I wonder if that's what gives him a sort of torque spike, as you mentioned. It's completely caught him out. He's not going that hard. He's just out of the pits. Low grip out there. And then it reminds me a little bit of when Carlos Sainz lost it under safety car last year. And again,
exactly the same thing. It's just the program is different. What you're used to do when you short shift, what we call short shift, is that you don't use all the power. You just go to the next gear just to make it smooth. But the problem, the way it's preset is always trying to give you the most power possible. And I think he went to the next gear and pressed the throttle thinking it was going to be smooth, and it wasn't.
Okay, so Oscar Piastri just cannot break that home curse. This is how the Australian Grand Prix is finished then. George Russell gets the first win of the season. Kimi Antonelli in P2, Charles Leclerc P3, Lewis Hamilton P4, and Lando Norris P5. Okay, well, we can hear from Oscar Piastri then. He had an absolute nightmare today. Let's check in with how he's feeling.
Oscar, obviously, hard luck out there. Just talk me through what happened in that moment when you were out on the formation lap.
Yeah, I mean, we need to review fully what happened. I think, I think using, I've got on the curb a little bit. But from what we've seen as well, I think everything kind of reacted the way it should within the rules, but essentially I had 100 kilowatts more power than I've had the whole weekend at the point that I shifted, and when I shifted went into wheel spin, and given that I was on the curb already, it was a combination of bad factors. So, obviously just very disappointed.
How much, obviously, does it hurt being your home race as well? So many fans out here for you, and you hadn't even got the chance to start the race.
Yeah, a lot. It's a shame. I mean, things like that shouldn't be happening anywhere, but especially at my home race, it's obviously even more disappointing.
Hard luck, Oscar. Thanks.
Well, Oscar Piastri there, really disappointed with today. It did not go his way at all. An absolute nightmare on his home turf as well. Well, George Russell got the win, his 6th career win. Here he is talking to Lawrence Barretto.
Hey, George, well, congratulations. How pleased are you with the way that you handled that entire race from the start when it got tense with the Ferraris to the way that you managed it throughout the rest of it?
Well, it kind of was the race that we were anticipating, like difficult start, potentially yo-yoing with the overtakes. I knew we had the car pace, so I probably left a bit more margin while fighting Charles. And he was, quite aggressive in some of the defensive manoeuvres. But at the end of the day, I think we created a really good race for you guys watching at home. As challenging as it was still fun from within the cockpit. And maybe these new regs aren't as bad as everyone's making out.
Obviously, there was a lot of expectation on you guys through pre-season. You've delivered on what you wanted to achieve here. How proud are you of the way that you've delivered and the team as well?
No, really proud. I think it's just been a clean weekend. Obviously, today was slightly more challenging. But I think when the pace we saw Ferrari was more like what we were anticipating and not what we saw in qualifying. So I don't know what happened with the other teams in qualifying. That pace difference wasn't what anybody was expecting. However, what we saw Ferrari today, they're definitely in the mix.
Great stuff.
Thank you.
Well, George Russell on the radio said, yeah, I like this car. Very, very nice indeed. He got the job done. He was the favourite. He's the World Championship favourite coming in, the pre-season favourite. You can see Toto Wolff there, yeah. He liked the look of that, and Mercedes won too as well for the first time since 2019. We can now bring in Jonathan Wheatley, Audi team principal.
Oh, sorry.
Here he is. Jonathan, hello. Lovely to meet you. Betty here. Go on then. Round up your emotions. How are you feeling after that?
Yeah, a bit yin and yang, because it never feels great doing my job when one of the drivers doesn't get to start the race. We lost telemetry, so we don't actually even know what happened with Nico's car, taking it apart at the moment. But look, it doesn't take away from the fact that at Audi Revolut Formula One team's very first Grand Prix, that we scored points in the race, and it's a great feeling.
Have you managed to speak to Nico Hülkenberg yet?
Yeah, he came up and had a chat in the pit wall straight away. I mean, look, it's not his first rodeo. He's very pragmatic about these things. He takes a long-term view on it. And actually, there were a lot of drivers who didn't get to finish the race today.
Yeah, well, indeed. So, Gabriele Bortoleto, he must be absolutely buzzing. What has he said to you, and how proud are you of his performance?
Do you know, I just had 30 seconds with him before I came here. His outstanding comment is he's exhausted. It's a mental as well as a physical challenge, how to use the energy correctly in these cars to get lap time out of these cars. It's proving to be a really exciting set of regulations, I think.
Do you think it felt exciting with the race start, but it must be so, I don't know, hard to manage the race from your perspective?
Well, we had a motor race today. I was watching it at the front, and I thought, I ought to be paying attention to my driver. And it was great to see it. It was very interesting, and those of you who know what you're looking at, if you look at Gabriele trying to fight Arvid on the last few laps, you see how the energy use is so important.
We had 16 finishes as well. Obviously, you didn't have a starter in there, but the one that did start managed to make it to the end. And a two-stop, which I thought was a great call by the team. How was it from the pit wall? And obviously, you had the focus all on one driver, which maybe helped a little bit then?
That's an interesting question, because we're bringing together a chassis and powertrain team that's never worked with each other before. Obviously, we've done a lot of testing over the winter. The different voices on the intercom, it doesn't run quite as smoothly, it doesn't feel, but actually, coming away from it, I think we've made some tremendous progress, There was good conversations. Yeah, we were aggressive, why not? Put another set of tyres on it, see if you could get as far as Behrman. Didn't quite happen. Unfortunately, Colapinto, I think, because he boxed and came out ahead of us, it kind of ruined Gabby's charge. But yeah, I think it shows our ambition.
Are you comfortable and happy where you start pace-wise? Do you think, were you expecting this, be more competitive, less competitive, and how are we looking for upgrades?
Do you know what? I honestly, I didn't know. We've tried to just concentrate on ourselves this winter and not get caught up in the normal battle of trying to work out what other teams are doing. Just concentrate on our own performance, have a clean race weekend. That's what we did this weekend. I think, not clean enough on Nico's side in terms of starting the race, but I find it fascinating, the build-up to it. I find it fascinating, the teams working together and how it comes together.
Jonathan, we've got to let you go now because you've got to go to the debrief. Have fun.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Sure that'll be spicy. Gabriele Bortoleto, though, points on the board. I mean, brilliant from him.
Yeah, I was just about to ask Wheatley about what they learnt during that race, because we had a chat before the race and we were talking about it being a race of attrition. I asked every team how many cars they thought was going to finish. His answer was 12, which was actually quite high, I would say, compared to field average. The highest number I heard was 16. But, you know, what you could see there was I think that they did a really good job of adjusting the plan with Gabby as they went. I think, you know, you could hear from the team radio that two-stop was, as you mentioned, a reaction. And I think you could see up and down the grid, teams are really having to work to adjust their strategy and their plan based on what their strengths and weaknesses are and the gaps that they've got. And in the midfield, there were some really interesting stories.
It's interesting as well, sorry, that of all the people that retired, Aston Martin obviously had a complicated day, but everyone else, it was one car. So Audi could learn with Bortoletto, Cadillac could still learn with Checo. You had Verstappen out there for Red Bull. So I feel like at this stage of the season, with so much development coming, everyone needs to learn. And if you have two cars out, you're a little bit stuffed. But one car can learn a huge amount still.
Yeah, I think something that is very interesting is you look at the Mercedes side, for example, and everything they did, they just executed, where everybody else seems to be learning through the race, where Mercedes had kind of a clear plan, and even Ferrari had a clear plan with their car. They knew how they need to use the energy. They knew how to do everything. Where when you talk to Audi and the mid teams, they all, talk about, how the driver had to learn and adapt to it.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Aston Martin there. Let's talk a little bit about them. They were in, out, and eventually they were out to conserve components. Why were they doing that, Juan? Explain that.
They hadn't done any testing. So the first time they're going to make an adjustment to the car is like, oh, we're way too high. We're looking at the data. We're too conservative. Come back in, adjust the ride height. Okay, let's try again. How's the car feeling? Okay, you like this? Oh, we picked up a ton of understeer. We're doing this. Okay, let's try something else. And they're using this as a test session. It's the first time the car was actually running properly.
Yeah, you're getting more laps than an FP2 session. I remember doing that with one of my cars that was broke. We used to do it for pit stop practice because you can, if you've got a car at the beginning of the season, if you've got a brand new crew, you're trying to sync everything up together. Every lap out there, you can learn something, you can test an item, and it's their right to be on the racetrack for as long as they want to be on the racetrack for.
I feel like it's a state of play that I thought that was an all right day for them.
Yeah.
They've had an all right weekend. We thought that they were maybe even going to barely race. But they did get some laps. I thought Fernando showed an element of qualifying pace. They still need loads of performance, but
it's a big step.
Yeah, it's a huge step. But even just getting the car on track and coming through the pits, making some changes, treating it like a test session, it will help them develop a lot.
Well, maybe things are on the up for Aston Martin. I mean, it couldn't get much worse after pre-season testing. It was a struggle, but I'll tell you who is very happy right now: George Russell, Kimi Antonelli, and Mercedes.
Huge congratulations on such a fantastic result. What a way to kick off the season. The champagne is flowing in the garages. The P1 T-shirts are out. Feels like you maybe expected a result this strong?
No, we've spent a few years carrying P1 T-shirts around for a very long time. We have them every year, so it's quite the privilege to be able to unpack them at race 1 and not to have to carry the suitcase until race 13, 14 or 15.
And just talk to us about that race then. I mean, it was a 1-2 across the line, but we did see some battles there with the Ferraris, with some of the other drivers. Just your assessment now that we've finally seen these cars out on track in full force.
I think we've got to watch it back again. There was so much going on. I mean, obviously the start was chaotic, as many had predicted. We lost out from P1, P2 to be P2, P7 at the end of lap 1. There was no strategy plan that called for that. So it was then just really about trying to settle things down, pick the cars off in front and make our way back forwards as we felt we had the pace to do. So I think the battles between the two Ferraris and George were really spectacular. We'd said before the race that doing an overtake doesn't mean it's done because of the energy balance that has to then happen with the batteries around the lap, and we saw that as well. So it was super exciting. Things settled down, I guess, in the second half of the race somewhat, but it seemed, I think we put on a good show, especially for the crowd who obviously saw a hometown hero sort of out before he was able to take the start, sadly. But still a really, I think, an exciting race. But, the fans will be the judge ultimately.
It was a fantastic race to watch. Thank you so much and congratulations. We'll let you get back to celebrating.
Thank you very much.
Well, it's safe to say Mercedes really did put on a good show. George Russell, the winner, Kimi Antonelli in second. Ferrari, though, definitely played a massive part in that. Okay, well, there's plenty more where this came from. 2026 Formula One, it's officially back. It started, everybody, and you don't have to wait very long for your next Grand Prix. Here is your schedule. Write this down in your diary, get a pen and a paper. You've got weekend warm-up on the 12th of March. That gets underway at 4:30 local time. Then on Friday, we've got our we've got our one practice session, we've got sprint quali, and then on Saturday, we've got our pre-sprint show. That gets underway at 10:15 local time. We've got the sprint at 11. That's certainly going to be very interesting, followed by a post-sprint show. You can see it all there. Qualifying as well, we'll be debriefing and previewing that, and then we have got our second Grand Prix of the season. The Chinese Grand Prix 2026 gets underway 3 p.m. local time, and of course we'll be rounding it all up with our post-race show straight after. But currently, right now, you are listening and you are watching our Australian Grand Prix post-race show, in which George Russell, he got the win, his 6th career win. Kimi Antonelli, second. Charles Leclerc completed that podium. What can we expect, Jolyon, from the Chinese Grand Prix?
The pecking order should be similar. There's no big developments coming for next week, but I think we're going to expect more from Ferrari. I do think the start's going to be good. Different racetrack, less harvesting, I think, next week. There's still a massive straight that's going to be difficult, but there are more braking events, so it'll be different in terms of energy management. I also, can we say well done to Arvid Lindblad? We've barely spoken about him, but what a performance that he had today.
Yeah, amazing rookie going out there. Juan Pablo, we spoke about Arvid Lindblad, didn't we, before the Grand Prix got underway?
He had such a clean weekend. The whole weekend, he was aggressive. I'll be honest with you, the only thing I thought, he was so aggressive with Max, and he was fine, but then if you're going to be that aggressive with Max, you better be that aggressive with everybody else as well. And he wasn't, and I was kind of surprised.
But he was like you on debut, coming in, not caring, fighting with the champs.
That's awesome. But then when somebody that is not in a Red Bull livery car comes by, you should do the same.
Yeah.
Do you see the similarities between him and yourself?
I'm way more aggressive.
Okay, well, give him time. This was just his first race one.
No, he was good. He did an amazing job. He did, and I think this season is going to bring a lot of surprises. I think a lot of people coming into this race were, not sure about the new rules, and he brought such an amazing racing. I thought that was unbelievable.
Ruth, just final thoughts from you?
Well done, Mercedes, first and foremost. Great stories. I can't wait to get to China now. I think we're going to see more overtaking. I really want to see the Red Bulls there. Well, both of them now, actually. Both Red Bulls, both Ferraris. See where the McLaren stack up. They're the 4th fastest team. Everything has changed. They've gone from championship leaders. They're now the 4th fastest team. And see how big that Mercedes advantage is next week, and if they have any more sandbags left in the thing.
Well, we'll soon find out. You say you can't wait for China. You don't have to wait long, because we're getting a flight over there soon in the next few days. Guys, thank you so much for joining us here in Melbourne, Australia. The sun has come out as we round off this post-race show. Mercedes, they got the job done. They looked superb, but Ferrari with their sting in their tail. They made the start of that race very, very exciting. We will see you in China. Hopefully plenty more where all of that came from.
Welcome to Race Day in China. We're back once again to continue the story.
Saying hi, that's me.
And Formula One is underway. Piastri chops across George Russell.
I've been hit by someone.
Aggressive opening lap. The venue that has so many fans.
This is the Chinese Grand Prix.
Oscar Piastri wins.
That is one satisfying weekend. Mega job, guys.